Hi everyone. So today we're doing something similar to what we did yesterday, where you are going to try to do the worksheet before you watch the video. So if you haven't tried to do the attached worksheet first, please go attempt that first. You have a trapezoid on it that looks like this, and you're going to try to find the area of it by answering some questions, and then watch this video and take some notes. You do not have homework over area of a trapezoid today. We'll practice it more tomorrow. It's a little trickier than the other formulas. All right, so if you did your worksheet, we're going to go through that, talk about it, and then take some notes in your notebook. So first thing I asked you about this trapezoid is to estimate the area using the grid. And so that's where you count up all the unit squares, or square units, and see about how many there are. So if you count them up, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 whole ones. And then you can say, well, maybe these two make one, and maybe these two make one. So that might be about 9 square units. Maybe you said 10. Maybe you said, 11 or 12 or 7, 8, something like that. Those are all good estimations. You'd say it's about 9 or 10 square units. Then I asked you for the height. And so that would be 1, 2, 3 units tall. And then I asked you for the length of the top side and the bottom side. Notice those are the two sides of the trapezoid that are parallel to each other, which is why I asked you about them. But the top is 4 units, and the bottom usually got 2 units long. Okay. Then I asked you, how could you make this into a square or a rectangle? Well, I feel like the most common I've seen is to cut it here, take that piece and flip it there. And you kind of fill in that gap with that piece. And it makes a square. There's other ways you can do it. But that's probably the way I've seen it most often. You can also cut it, you can cut it other places, but that's probably the easiest without the least amount of cuts. So we'll just stick with that one for now. All right, so then I ask you about the square or the rectangle, and I say how tall is your rectangle now? And it's got the same height. It's still 3 tall. And then I ask you about the top and bottom lengths again. So this time it was 4, but now it's not 4 anymore. It's shrunk down to 3. The bottom no longer is 2 though, it's expanded out to 3. And so now we can find the area of that by multiplying our length times our height, because we know how to find the area of a rectangle. So the area of that square would be length times height, or 3 times 3. So the area is going to be 9 square units. Okay, so this formula is going to be hard to decipher, so I'm just going to tell it to you. It's going to be hard to come up with exactly on your own, but we can use this example kind of to explain why it works. So the area of a trapezoid, which we'll write in our notes in a minute, is going to be, you multiply the height, right, we had our 3, which never changed, times, we're going to take the top of our, in this case, the top of our trapezoid and the bottom of our trapezoid. They're going to be called B1 and B2. Why? Because that stands for base 1 and base 2. It's going to be the two sides that are parallel to each other. It's not necessarily always on the bottom and the top. It could be on the sides if the parallel, or not parallel. If the trapezoid was like this would be, B1 and B2, because they're the two sides that are parallel. Remember, in a trapezoid, there's only one pair of parallel sides. So we're going to call those B1 and B2. Okay, the height is perpendicular. It's always perpendicular to those bases. So if you had a trapezoid like this, This would be B1 and B2 because they're parallel to each other. The height is not either of those sides because the height has to be perpendicular to those bases. So the height would run to the middle of that one. Okay, so the height's always perpendicular to those bases. We're going to multiply the height times the two parallel sides added together. So like in this case, we had 4 originally and 2 originally. So that one went all the way up to here, and it was 4. And this one just went to there, and it was 2. So if we use this one, we would do 3 is our height, and then we have our base 1 and our base 2 is 4 plus 2. That would go here. Whether or not we're going to divide that by 2. Y divided by 2. Well, remember we changed this to 3 and 3. Well, if we take our 4 plus our 2, we get 6. If we divide that by 2, we get our 3. We're basically kind of averaging those two sides. So if we add them up and divide by how many there are 2, we're finding the average of those two. So we got 4 plus 2 is 6. We're dividing that by 2. That gave us our 3. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And now we're doing base times height to find the area of the square. This, like the triangle one, is written more than one way, which kind of just gets confusing. So if you just remember one of them, you don't have to memorize it, but if you just get used to using one of them, that could be helpful. But just so you've seen them both, sometimes it's written as 1/2 height, and then base 1 plus base 2. Remember, 1/2 of something just means you're dividing by 2. So you still have all the same things. That's just like dividing by 2. This is at the beginning. Usually you wait till the end to do it anyway. All right, so let's put this in our notebook and try a few examples. So we'll title the area of trapezoid. And we'll write our formula. And then we'll write our other formula. So write those down. If you haven't yet, pause it. I'm going to go ahead and jump into example 1. All right, so if we have a trapezoid kind of like the one in our picture, that had a height of 3, this top is 4, and this bottom is 6. Let's try that one. So let's do it this way first. So if we're using that formula, we're going to find our h, plug in our base 1 and base 2, and then solve it. So our h, our height would be this 3. It's perpendicular. It kind of connects those two bases perpendicularly. So it's going to be 3. Remember, if there's no symbol between it, that means you're going to be multiplying. Okay, then we have our first base added to our second base. Then we're going to divide that by 2. So first thing you do in order of operations is parentheses. So we'll start there. 4 plus 6 is 10. All right, now we have 3 times 10 divided by 2. So it doesn't really matter. If you want to divide the 10 by 2 first, you can do 10 divided by 2 and get 5, and then multiply by your 3. I think that might be a little easier. Or you can do 3 times 10. Remember, if you are multiplying and dividing, you can do that in any order, really. Those happen the same time in the order of operations. So if we do 3 times 10, we're going to get 30. And then we have 30 divided by 2. which equals 15. So that would be 15 square units. We could have done 10 divided by 2 to get 5. 5 times 3 is 15, because division and addition happen division and multiplication happen at the same time in the order of operations. All right, so that's one way you can use it, or one way you can find the area of a trapezoid. We'll do the other one with our second example. It's basically the same thing, because multiplying by 1/2 is the same thing as divided by 2. All right, so for our second example, we'll draw a trapezoid like this. It's this side and this side that are parallel. My drawing's not very perfect. We're going to say this top part's 7 inches. The bottom is going to be 5 inches. And the height would not be either of these sides. It's going to be a line that's perpendicular to those bases. And we're going to call that one 4 inches. All right. So if we're finding the area of this triangle, we'll use that formula over there. We're going to have 1/2 height, base 1 plus base 2. So you just plug in your height, your base 1, and your base 2, and then you solve. So our height, remember, connects those two bases, is going to be 4. And then we have our base 1 and base 2. It doesn't really matter which one's base 1 and base 2. So if you're wondering, how do you know which one's base 1 and which one's base 2? It really does not matter. Because 7 plus 5 is the same thing as 5 plus 7. Because of the commutative property of addition. So now we can solve. We're going to start here with that addition. This is in parentheses. This 4 is in parentheses too, but there's no operation within it. So we're going to start with this one. 7 plus 5 is 12. And now we're just multiplying all these. We got 1/2 times 4 times 12. I think the easiest way would be to find half of 4 first. So if we find half of 4, that's 4 divided by 2. That'll give us 2. And so we have our 12 left to be multiplied. So 2 times 12, that's going to give us 24 square inches. All right, we will do one more example. This time, this will be our trapezoid. Okay, so this side is going to be 3, this side will be 3, and this side will be 5. Hopefully that works out. Okay. All right. So remember, the sides that are parallel to each other are the bases. That would be these ones. So even though this one's on the bottom, it's actually the height. Okay, because these two are parallel to each other, and the height connects the two parallel perpendicularly. So if you need to imagine it tilted on its side, where this is the bottom and that's the top, that's the height, if it makes more sense that way. We're going to do 1/2, the height is 3, and then we're going to add the two parallel sides together, so we have 5 plus 3. All right. So area is 1/2. We're going to do the parentheses first, so 5 plus 3 is 8. Now this time I probably want to do half of 3 first. Like last time we did half of 4 first. We don't want to find half of 3, that gives us a fraction or a decimal. So let's try to do the 3 times 8 first this time. Because remember, you can multiply in any order. The commutative property of multiplication is you can multiply in any order. So we're going to do 3 times 8, which is 24. We're finding half of 24. So that's 24 divided by 2, which would give us 12 square units. All right, we'll practice this more tomorrow. We're done with math.